Hello, I'm Demi Utley, the founder here at Utley Strategies, and this is part one of a short video series about winning government contracts. So I'm often asked by small businesses what they need to know to secure government contracts. It's an appealing option for a lot of businesses because the government market in the US is often really huge. And once you secure a government contract, it's a lot easier for you to start securing even more of those contracts. So this video series is going to give you a quick introduction to the world of government RFPs and government contracts with some tips on how to get started. Let's dive in. So any conversation about government contracts has to touch on RFPs. If you're not familiar, RFP stands for Request for Proposal. And this is where an organization will ask for companies to send in proposals for a particular project or contract. Sometimes you might see RFI, which stands for Request for Information, which is sometimes a step before the actual RFP. You might also see an RFQ, which can stand for Request for Quote or Request for Qualifications. It can vary slightly depending on the organization. And this, if it's a request for quote, then it involves a few forms and some pricing, and that's how they're going to be awarded. We're not going to go into detail on the differences between all of these right now. We do have other videos and blog posts on those topics, so I definitely encourage you to go check those out. So when you're shifting from the commercial private sector to the public space for government contracts, there is one major difference between those two types of RFPs. And that is that in the public sector, RFPs are most of the time publicly available for anyone. So they're often listed on a government's website, maybe on a procurement website, something like that. So anyone can go and they can find these RFPs. But in the commercial sector, you typically have to be invited to send in a proposal, which means maybe you've had some sales meetings with them, maybe your marketing has worked and brought them to you. And then that's how you're invited to actually respond to those RFPs. So this makes government RFPs very different, and it also makes them very appealing for some companies who like to be able to go and just do a quick search to see if there's anything available related to their solution area that they can sell and pitch today. Other companies don't like this because that means that anyone can bid. So it means you're going to have more competition and you're going to have varying levels of competition with this. But there isn't anything we can do about that, unfortunately. This is just how the process goes. But there is a huge benefit in being able to have the competitive insight into who else is actually bidding, which does make government RFPs a little bit easier to figure that out since you can actually see who else is responding. And in some cases, you can go and see their proposals. So we're not going to go into detail on that today. That's covered in other videos, but I just wanted to let you know that that is an option when you move to the public sector. So, and now that we've covered the basics of government RFPs, let's talk about your strategy for a moment. So there are typically two main ways that government RFPs are awarded. So it's either lowest price technically compliant or best value. So lowest price technically compliant evaluations mean that whichever bidder has the lowest price, if they are compliant, then they are going to receive the contract. Even if your competitor is only $1 less than you, if they are the lowest priced option, even if you have value adds, they're going to be awarded because that's how they're choosing to award this contract. Unsurprisingly, a lot of times these proposals end up being very competitive on price and often a race to the bottom by cutting, margins and trying to be the lowest priced. So if you're already a high bidder, then it might not make sense for you to respond to these because you're going to have to cut your price by so much and it might not be profitable for you in the long run. But it's up to you to determine if it's important strategically for your organization. Best value opportunities, on the other hand, are actually evaluated based on overall value. So most often, these types of evaluations will have a set of evaluation criteria that they're using to determine who they are going to award the contract to. So this allows you to go through and get scores in different areas of your proposal, not just price, so that is most of the time a factor as well. But it allows you to go through and score in these other areas, and then often you'll be invited to go to a presentation, maybe negotiate a contract or submit a best and final offer as well. So with this type of solicitation, your proposal becomes even more important because that is how you're able to showcase why your company is the best fit and advocate for you to get the most points possible so you can receive the highest points and hopefully win the contract. So how do you know if a specific RFP is best value or lowest price technically compliant? Many times, almost all of the time, the RFP is going to say if they're choosing to award in one of these ways. They might not use these terms exactly, but whenever you get an RFP, you can go to a section that shows how they're evaluating. And if they say they're looking at, a number of different factors, if they have a chart with the evaluation criteria, then you know that that's best value. If they say that it's going to be awarded basically solely based on price, then you know that that's going to be an area that's going to determine how they award. So you can go through and decide if it makes sense for you to respond to that opportunity. Always review this before you start working on the proposal because it is going to affect how you respond. If you know it's going to be evaluated just on compliance and price, then you don't need to go through and put in all of the extra work to create, win themes and differentiators and things like that, because you just have to show that you're compliant and that you are the lowest priced. However, if it's best value, then you're going to spend a lot more time doing all of that so you can get as many points possible. Okay, so that's it for the first in our video series on an introduction to government RFPs. Watch here for part 2. And in the meantime, if you would like a little bit more of a deep dive into the world of RFPs and what you can expect, then definitely check out our RFPs 101 course, which is designed for anyone who is just now starting to respond to RFPs and want to make sure that you know what you need to know to be compliant, to put your best foot forward and create your best proposals. That's all that I have for you today, and I'll see you in the next video.